What if I told you that your mind operates on a frequency so rare, only about 1% of the population can actually grasp it? That the thoughts you're having right now might be more than just thoughts. They might be proof of a deep psychological phenomenon that Carl Jung spent his entire life trying to understand. Modern psychology supports this too. Studies show that many rare minds align with specific patterns, especially INFJs and INTJs, the exact types Jung himself would have found fascinating. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might just realize that your mind is one of the rarest types known to human psychology. And trust me, sign number 8 might shift the way you view your entire mental world. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what happens when who you truly are seems alien to those around you? When your way of thinking doesn't just confuse people, it intimidates them, or even pushes them away. Jung believed that a small percentage of people are born with minds that don't just think differently, they operate in entirely different dimensions. And no, this isn't about IQ. Intelligence is common. But consciousness, rare consciousness, is something else entirely. Here's the wild part. Jung found that most people with these rare minds don't even realize how unique they are. They go through life feeling out of place, wondering why conversations feel dull, why others don't see what they see, or why their observations are met with silence or blank stares. Sound familiar? Let's dive into the 8 unmistakable signs your mind belongs to the elusive 1%. Sign 1, you see patterns others miss. Jung identified a rare trait called introverted intuition. It's the mind's ability to perceive connections that others completely overlook. If this is you, you don't just see pieces, you see how everything links together. You don't just hear words, you hear the emotional truth behind them, the historical roots, the hidden meaning, the ripple effect into the future. While others take things at face value, you're decoding the symbols, tone, posture, and even unconscious motives behind what's being said. This insight, Jung believed, taps into something deeper, the collective unconscious, a vast psychological reservoir of archetypes and patterns that most people can't access. Here's a test. When you read a novel or watch a movie, do you guess the ending? Not from clues, but because you feel the storyline's direction. Do you finish people's sentences? Not out of habit, but because you intuitively sense their next thought. If so, your mind is operating on multiple dimensions. And that brings us to the next sign. Sign 2, you experience reality in layers. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead to an understanding of ourselves. But what if you naturally perceive those deeper meanings all the time? People with rare minds don't just live life, they experience it across multiple psychological layers. Someone says, "I'm fine." You hear the contradiction in their tone, notice the tension in their body, feel the sadness beneath their mask, and grasp the unspoken story behind the sentence. Jung called this psychological depth perception. While others absorb information in a straight line, you see a multi-dimensional world full of emotional, symbolic, and spiritual meaning. And here's the problem. When you try to explain these insights to others, they don't get it. It's not that they're stupid, they just can't see the reality you see. They think you're overthinking, imagining things, or being dramatic. But Jung believed minds like yours act as bridges, connecting conscious thought with unconscious wisdom. You might find yourself drawn to symbolism, metaphors, mythology, psychology, and storytelling. Why? Because those are the only languages deep enough to hold your truth. And that brings us to sign number 3. Sign 3, you're drawn to the shadow side of human nature. Jung famously explored the shadow, the hidden dark side of the psyche. Most people avoid it. You're captivated by it. You're not afraid of darkness. You want to understand it. Why do people betray each other? What fuels cruelty? What's really going on beneath socially acceptable behavior? You don't judge people as simply good or bad. You want to know what created their contradictions. Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You were born for this shadow work. You naturally explore the forbidden, the complex, and the uncomfortable. You're the kind of person who resonates with flawed characters, true crime, moral paradoxes, and psychological thrillers, not for entertainment, but to gain understanding. Your mind refuses to see life in black and white. It's wired for nuance. And that brings us to one of the most isolating signs. Sign 4. You feel like you speak a different language. Jung found that rare minds often feel psychologically lonely, not because they don't talk to people, but because no one understands the depth of what they're saying. Have you ever explained something meaningful, only to be met with blank stares? Here's what's happening. Your mind speaks in symbols, metaphors, and intuition. You don't just state facts. You transmit ideas packed with feeling, context, and unconscious depth. But most people can only process literal communication. You're speaking in surround sound while they're hearing in mono, so you simplify. You say never mind. You write your thoughts instead of saying them. You crave solitude, journaling, or one-on-one conversations, anything to avoid the disconnect. But Jung believed this wasn't a flaw, it was a gateway. Your language invites people to evolve, even if they don't understand it yet. Which brings us to the next surprising truth. Sign 5. You're uncomfortable with pure logic. While others live by logic alone, you see its limits. You don't reject reason, you transcend it. Jung called this intuitive logic. It's a mental process that honors feeling, imagery, paradox, and nonlinear understanding. You make decisions based not only on what's reasonable, but what feels aligned. True, symbolic, and meaningful. Here's how it shows up. You trust your gut even when it makes no sense. You notice logical arguments that feel off. You solve problems with creativity, not formulas. And you feel suffocated by people who dismiss what can't be measured. Your mind weaves logic and emotion together into something richer, a full-spectrum understanding of reality. It's like a symphony, but others can only hear one instrument. And that leads us to the next sign. Sign 6. You see through social masks instantly. Jung explored the persona, the mask we wear in public. But if you have this rare mind, you can see through it like glass. You don't just know when someone's being fake. You feel what they're hiding. You sense their fear, shame, insecurity, and the beautiful truth underneath. Your gift is rare, deep emotional X-ray vision. You pick up on micro-expressions, contradictions, emotional leakage, things others completely miss. And because of that, you often become a confidant, even to strangers. But it's exhausting. Group settings can feel like theater. Everyone's playing roles, and you're just trying to have a real conversation. The challenge is that your perception can't be turned off. You see what others don't want seen, and that leads to something even deeper. Sign 7. You experience existential loneliness. Jung called this the loneliness of the soul. You could be in a crowded room and still feel like an alien. Not because you're antisocial, but because your mind is tuned to questions others avoid. Why are we here? What is death? How can pain and beauty exist side by side? While others chase distractions, you're wrestling with the architecture of existence. Jung believed this wasn't depression. It was a sign of evolved consciousness. You can't be satisfied with shallow living. You need meaning like oxygen. But few people want to go that deep. And so you often feel more connected to art, books, music, and nature than to people. You've probably said, I feel like I'm from another planet. That feeling isn't a flaw. It's proof your awareness has expanded beyond normal limits. And that brings us to the final sign, perhaps the most powerful of all. Sign 8. You're drawn to transformation. More than anything, your soul craves evolution. While others seek comfort, you're drawn to the fire. You don't just want self-improvement, you want rebirth. Jung called this individuation, the lifelong process of integrating all parts of yourself into wholeness. Shadow and light, logic and feeling, conscious and unconscious. You understand that real growth requires breakdowns, that pain isn't failure, it's initiation, that the only way out is through. You're the kind of person who chooses paths others fear, faces challenges head-on, gets restless in easy comfort, knows that darkness often comes before awakening. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And yet you do. You embrace the sacred fire of transformation, because you know your evolution is your purpose. So there you have it. 8 signs that your mind belongs to the 1%. Not in wealth, but in consciousness. You're not just different, you're necessary. Jung believed rare minds like yours don't exist by accident. You're here to bridge the conscious and unconscious, to bring wisdom into a world addicted to distraction. You see what others miss. You understand what others fear. You speak in symbols. You carry light and shadow. You're not broken. You're advanced. So the next time you feel alone, remember, there are others like you. Quiet minds, scattered across the planet, feeling the same depth, asking the same questions. You are not alone in feeling alone. You are the future of human awareness. And the question now is, what will you do with this awareness? Will you hide it, or will you use it? Because the world doesn't just need more minds. It needs more conscious minds. Minds like yours. So if this resonated with you, You're not just watching this video. You're waking up to who you are. Welcome to the 1%. The journey has only just begun.